Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, and it's great to be with you again. Today, we have a great topic lined up for you: how to approach employability strategically. Forward-looking education institutions are focused on the employability of their students more than ever now. Gone are the days where a degree could get you a job. The world is changing fast, and the labor market is changing with it. Employers want to see potential hires have the skills to adapt in a changing economy, i.e., they want a workforce that will help their organizations thrive in the current economy. And we know that all education institutions on the webinar today care deeply about their students' future, which depends heavily on getting a good job once they graduate. That is why we are excited to share with you the experience of 3 universities that are doing a fabulous job on this front, whom we have had the privilege of working with and supporting along their journey. We have selected our speakers to represent different global locations and also different perspectives from within the universities. Now I am delighted to introduce our speakers. We have Mohamed Kalla, CEO of CIRA, Egypt's largest investor in the area of private education. The company holds more than 17 affiliate companies and brands, including Bedr University in Cairo, BUC, which will be one of the universities we will be talking about. And he is also the co-chair of the Education Committee at the American Chamber of Commerce in Egypt. Mohamed will be talking to us from the perspective of a founder and investor in the field of education. Representing Latin America, we have Tania Zuniga, the Chief Strategy Officer at Continental University based in Peru. Tania has over 10 years experience in finance, strategy, and operations management within different global organizations. Tania will be talking to us from the perspective of the strategy unit and how employability is embedded in the overall strategy at her university. Then, representing Africa, we have Jackline Chibai. Jackie is the Director of Strategy and Quality Assurance Services at Strathmore University, based in Kenya. She is a seasoned management consultant with over 15 years work experience, specializing in strategy and business planning for both public and private sector organizations. Jackie will also be telling us about employability from the perspective of the strategy unit at her university in the context of Africa. We will have a question and answer session during the second half of our webinar. So I would like to encourage you all to send over your questions in the Q&A box, which is different to the chat box. You will find both icons at the bottom of the screen. And by the way, the Q&A box is not public, only the panel and myself can see those questions. Before we move on to our speakers, we would like to tell you why IFC is focused on employability through education, what our presence looks like, and what tool we have to support our clients in this space. So I'd like to hand over to Dina Nicholas, our global lead for employability, the Vitae program, to give that brief. Over to you, Dina.
Thanks a lot, Amy, and hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. So I want to talk about IFC's work with higher education institutions to help them prepare students for careers, to help support their employability. So IFC provides an advisory service to colleges and universities globally to help them understand and measure the policies and practices that they have in place, which prepare students for careers. So at its core, this is an assessment. It's a self-assessment completed by the institution of about 70 questions, which is matched with a methodology that includes surveys of students and alumni, as well as qualitative interviews with key internal and external stakeholders. This is a process that takes about 3 months, and we've been deploying this advisory service globally for the past 2 or 3 years. So we've worked with TVET colleges, with research universities, with technical institutes to help them understand how they're set up to support student employability. Now, why is IFC in this space? So IFC is one of the largest multilateral investors in emerging markets. We invest in higher education institutions and have invested in more than 100 education providers over the past several years. As an investor, we found that there's a link between institutions that are focused on supporting student employability and other qualities that we look for in our investment clients. So very often these institutions have good operational policies, they have a sound governance structure, they have dynamic management. We found that they tend to be very well positioned in their markets because they have a compelling ROI case. They can talk to students and families about the return on investment of an education. So yes, you get a solid academic foundation, but we can also help you to enter the job market. We provide career guidance, work integrated learning opportunities, internships, career services throughout the student journey, and we can also help you find a job at the end. So that link between institutions that are focused on student employability and good investment clients was really clear to us. The second thing that we found is that clients are increasingly asking for additional information on how to support student employability. What are good practices and how can we move from good advanced practices to really best in class? How can we really take a market leadership position in this space? So our education specialists looked at the work that they'd done over the past 10 years, and they started to compile the best practices or the good practices that they had found globally. What are institutions doing to support student employability? And this became a compendium of employability practices that split into 5 dimensions. This compendium was then validated with our clients and partners, both in emerging markets and in developed economies. And it became the core of this advisory service that we've been rolling out over the past years. So that's really the story of how we got into this space. And maybe I want to talk just very briefly about the fact that we focus on policies and procedures, not so much on student outcomes, because many institutions are tracking their alumni. They're doing tracer surveys. They understand what employability outcomes look like for their alumni. Our process helps them to understand why the outcomes are what they are. We look at how they're doing employability services, and we can advise them on how to improve those services. So maybe I want to then end with something that's really changed over the past few weeks. Earlier this month, we launched an online portal. It's called vitaeready.org. You can find it online. And it is a summary of some of the good practices in employability that IFC has found working with clients over the past years. So in addition to good practices, you can actually take a benchmarking assessment. So you can see how your institution stacks up to good practices in employability. This is an early indication. It's a 16-question benchmarking that takes about 20 minutes to complete. But it's really kind of the foundation of this broader advisory service that we have for our investment and advisory clients, but that we've now made available for free online to all higher education institutions. So we encourage you to check out the site. We encourage you to take the benchmarking. If you have questions, reach out to our team. If you want to become a partner of IFC in this work, please reach out. We're happy to discuss that. And with that, Amy, I want to hand it back over to you and our panelists this morning. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tina, for that. Okay, so I think everybody now knows that they can go log on to the website and conduct that benchmarking exercise just to get an idea of what we do. But so now with that context, I'd like to turn to you, Mohamed, in your capacity as the biggest investor in the field of private education in Egypt and the founder of Bedri University in Cairo. I'd like you to tell us how you think about the subject of employability. In case you're saying anything, Mohamed, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you, Amy, and thank you for inviting us. We always love to do activities with IFC. I mean, your work is quite influential, and we're happy to be one of your partners, actually. I mean, with CIRA, it's always a very interesting perspective because, to a large extent, the company have been founded around availability of what we call it affordable and impactful education in Egypt, and this was the idea behind the foundation of Bedri University. I mean, given our history back for K-12, when our students graduate, they always complained about the fact they're unable to find what we call them quality granting institutions in the higher educational space that manages to balance cost and quality of education. And this is something that CIRA have developed over the years. So, I mean, Bedri University started, it's quite nascent, it's almost 6 years ago. But I mean, we're always proud to say that we're the fastest growing private university in the history of Egypt. I mean, 13,000 students in over 6 years. And one of the main drivers of what we're trying to do is that we try to provide quality education for the Egyptian middle class to be able to fit the job market. And when we talk about affordability and middle class, employability comes hand in hand because people want to invest in education that will put them into the workplace tomorrow. And this is where the equation comes in. So the foundation of CIRA have been around the setup of creation of a university that to a large extent tried to combine practical experiences with proper theory and avail students the availability to engage in the job market directly. And this where actually our need with IFC partnership came in, because when we talk about affordability and quality, then a lot of innovation is needed into the spectrum itself. And this is where we actually asked help from IFC. So, I mean, it's easy when you're a state-of-the-art university with a lot of resources to be able to provide employability services, but employability is needed across all the chain. And I think now we're working with IFC team on creation of an employability center and what I call it a core concept within the university that fits affordable education. And I think it's going to be a landmark, basically, achievement if we manage to create a system that's affordable at the same time impactful at the market.
Great, thanks, Mohamed, for that. Yeah, it sounds very inspiring the way you look at it. And we're very excited about the Employability Center as well. Great to hear that you're moving forward.
Same here.
With that, I'd like to move over to Latin America, and I'd like to move to Tania at Continental University. And Tania, could you tell us a bit about Continental University, your mission, and why you decided to conduct an employability assessment?
Thank you, Amy, for the introduction, and thank you for having us today. Well, Continental, it's a 23-year-old university located in Huancayo, which is in the highlands of Peru. We focus on providing access to quality and affordable education in a country where education is pretty much centralized only in the capital city, which is Lima. A few years ago, around 2016, the university wanted to scale up. But before doing that, they took a time to actually listen to their students and build an educational model and a student experience based not only on the students' needs and aspirations, but also on the employers' expectations, as well as the community needs. And that itself called for a massive internal transformation. And actually it was an inflection point in our growth. We now have 5 campuses across the country and around 40,000 students. And on why we decided to embark on this project with the IFC, well, I think that as most universities, if not all, our aspiration is to become as relevant as possible to our students and to the communities that we work with. Our students come from a pretty diverse academic and economic background, and actually most of them come from very highly vulnerable segments. In addition to that, if you take into account our economic structure, 65% of the employment is still informal in Peru. And 95%, probably even now, more with the pandemic, of the enterprises are small to medium. And that led us to have a lot of discussions, internal discussions around what employability means to us. what we found out was that 8 out of 10 of our students, they want to finish their career and secure a full-time job offer, but they also want to be able to create their own job opportunities by going through the entrepreneurship pathway. So that is employability for us, to be able to help them have the confidence and the ability to create their own job opportunities, either by securing a full-time job or creating their own. And I think that the assessment came just at the right time, because we were having those discussions, and it also helped us analyze some processes that were happening behind the scenes and helped us see some other practices that are being used by other universities around the world. It also happens that we are just creating our next 5-year plan, and we wanted to have as much feedback as we could in some areas that we consider our priority, like employability.
Thank you, Tania, for that. And it's great to hear that the employability assessment came at the right time, and it helped you guys identify the gaps and practices around the world that could help you develop your already very advanced strategy on employability. Thank you for that, Tania. With that, I'd like us to move to hear from our Kenya representative. So I'd like to go to Jackline. Hi, Jackie. And I'd like to ask, could you also tell us a bit about your mission at Strathmore University, what your mission is, and how that's related to employability? You're on mute, by the way.
I'm sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. It's actually 3 o'clock in Kenya. That's why I'm saying good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. So I'll just quickly jump onto a little bit about Strathmore University. So Strathmore University has quite a rich heritage. It was actually started 60 years ago. So it's quite exciting. We have an anniversary going on at the moment. And the main mission for Strathmore University was to develop the whole individual. So coincidentally, it was the first African university that was multiracial and multi-religious in a time where there was a lot of segregation. So this was one of the pioneer universities that was all-inclusive. And the main agenda was to develop the whole human being. So our mission is basically derived from the fact that the university wanted to provide an all-rounded quality education in an atmosphere of freedom and responsibility, which we hold quite instead at the university. Also, we value service to society, which was also one of the key features that our founders looked at, and a lot on ethical practice. So what differentiates us from other universities in Africa is our mission. Our mission statement has not changed, and it's very, very relevant to the employability, because at the end of the day, we want to develop a wholesome human being who's going to be a local and global change agent through both education that they receive and the person in terms of the ethical person, service to society, research. So the mission statement actually is enlivened by a vision statement, which is now focusing on us becoming a leading entrepreneurial university, of course, positively impacting society and through excellent work. So as you note that service to society keeps following us, excellent work keeps following us, and entrepreneurial university into the future. And then that links to our strategic plan, which has 4 pillars. And there's a pillar for transformative student experience, which looks at developing students who become, global change leaders. And we employ all manner of strategies throughout the student life cycle that are aimed at doing that. Then of course we have research and innovation that impact society, and then we have service to society as long and transformative staff experience. So in a nutshell, our mission as a university aims to bring out the whole subject of employability, not just to be employed, but also to be able to be a change agent in the society. And that means through entrepreneurship, through being employed, wherever you go, you make positive change. So I think I could talk about this the whole day, but that in itself, in summary, is what Strathmore University is about.
That's great. Thank you, Jackline, for that explanation of your mission. So I'm here, there's a common thread here. You're all focused on providing a high quality education for students in a diverse community, vulnerable communities, making sure that your education is affordable to people that wouldn't necessarily be able to afford the more expensive private education, which is normally a bit expensive. So that's what you're all focused on, and creating agents of change, or I hear ethical individuals in society, individuals that can contribute. So that's, and to do that, you need the skills, right? You need the skills to be able to move forward, to take up a job that is a decent job, a good job that would provide them with a decent life. So on that, I'd actually like to go to you, Mohamed, and ask you, with that mission in mind, creating individuals that have the skills to take up jobs that are needed by society, good jobs that are needed in society, what are the barriers that you came across, if any, when founding Bedr University?
I mean, at the end of the day, the biggest barrier we have actually, surprisingly, was actually the culture. I mean, if you take a look to a large extent at the social culture within our country, people get to education because they want to receive a specific social status, disregarding their interest in the workplace. So, I mean, it's more or less your certificate going out of university is a position that you get into society rather than focusing on the job market. And we had a lot of focus from students to attain big certificates like being doctors, engineers, basically computer science experts, although the market is not looking for that. So, I mean, the biggest thing we needed to work on is change the culture of admitting students, trying to tell them from day one, you need to open an application at the employability location, you need to identify a career, and you need to start basically doing internships and focus your mind that upon graduation, your target is not the certificate, but the job you're going to basically achieve. And this is taking a lot of time, but it's proving successful. And I guess you have seen also some of the models that we have specifically with the nursing school, how we managed now to get our nurses, male and female, aspiring nurses from year one. So, I mean, they engage the job market at the beginning. Upon graduation, they're already veteran employees. And that's a very important cultural change. I mean, I don't want to take too much of the time, but I think the social aspect specifically in Egypt was a very important challenge to overcome. We're still working on it. We're not there, but I hope we're going to change this over time, a bit by bit.
Yes, that is definitely. I mean, coming from Egypt myself, I understand the culture, the difficulty of that barrier and changing it. Could you tell us a bit more then about the initiatives in place at Bedr to make sure that employability is embedded at your highest strategy, like senior management level, whether it's nursing, whether it's other faculties, and like how you even set those up, given this culture in Egypt and the Middle East? How did you set that up? How do you make sure it's embedded there from the very beginning?
It's a very important question, Amy, and the aim here is that, again, because we're working retroverse to the culture, so at inception, we included that the KPIs of the university, whether it's at the senior team, at the board of trustees, or at the implementation level, takes a look at employability and skill gap identification as key pillars for how we evaluate the work that we're doing. So, to a large extent, we don't want to judge ourselves by the number of graduates or the number of people actually admit to the university, which is classical two ways to always see how impactful or in demand the university is. Rather, we're trying to say, how many people do we place at the job market? What's the demand from the industry and the corporate sector? So we're trying to really reach out to a different group of stakeholders and making sure that their feedback becomes a KPI of how we actually evaluate ourselves. And that's why we have now a fully dedicated office, as you know, that engages with industry and dedicates with the private sector to be able to always get data, not only from our alumni, but also from how the market perceives our graduates. Level of competency, delivery, interest to hire them, and try to always identify how can we improve our products. So to a large extent, it's a mentality shift. I mean, even everybody at CIRA now will be talking about that we are actually creating a product line to deliver a demanded product. And every now and then we try to change the pattern we're working with. It's not as easy as said, but it's a matter of identifying your KPIs based on how the market perceives your output to a large extent. And we're trying to work now specifically with you guys on creation of doctrines and principles that are adopted at every single level. And it becomes part of the governance code and the way we evaluate the process of the university and its output.
Okay, so thanks, Mohamed. So it's a focus on KPIs, your key performance indicators, and collecting the data that will help you better understand how you're doing that in that way.
100%. It's just about trying to get an informed decision that will allow you to constantly adapt. And bear in mind, I mean, as you're fully aware, how changing the job market is. So, I mean, nobody have the laxity now to set on a set of specific data in more than 3 to 4 years. Job markets are changing, skills gaps are changing, demands are changing. So, I mean, we're always thinking of it that at a point of time, the university is going to enter into the era of what we call it, learning and relearning constantly. And that's why the idea of having this incorporated as a policy within the university and having the ability to always generate data and change with it is the key 2 pillars to survive this constantly changing working environment that we're seeing.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Then nobody can deny how fast everything's changing.
Yeah.
It's great that you have this system in place to constantly update and reloop into your strategy.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks, Mohamed. Okay. With that, I'd like to go to Jackline again and ask you, Jackie, because I'm going to ask, because I know you guys are doing quite a lot on data collection as well. Could you first, though, tell us about the initiatives that you have in place for to ensure that employability is focused on at the highest levels, and with a focus on your data collection initiative, which I know you'll do as Strathmore at Strathmore University, you're quite strong on, and I know this is one of your baby projects, and I know this is going to be really interesting to the rest of the panelists and our audience. We need you to unmute.
I keep forgetting, I apologize. So thank you. I think for me, for Strathmore University, what is really key for us is that we've put in strategies around employability, as you said, that we follow it through the highest levels because it's part of our mission statement. However, what we particularly do, and there are so many things that we do, but one of the key things that we do is our office is structured in such a way that the strategy and quality assurance office also looks after the data. So there's also the institutional data analytics unit that reports to the director of strategy and quality assurance. So that kind of structure ensures that the university is able to collect data and that is used to make data-driven decisions. This is where we are going. We have to make decisions based on data. So the issue of employability is followed through. So we collect data through the entry surveys, first of all, and that is to ascertain what the student expectations are and to ensure that as we go along, we are meeting those expectations or we are surpassing them. The second thing that we do is we also collect exit surveys every year. The graduate students will always provide us with data, and in that data, we find out how long they have been, whether they've been employed, how long after they've exited the university, whether they had the jobs. when they enter the university, whether they started businesses during university or right after. That's also to measure their entrepreneurship, because all these encompass employability. So apart from that, we have the career development services, which also collect data and carries out tracer surveys. So those tracer surveys and all other surveys that take place, including the alumni surveys, they all tend to lend information to our office that is used to measure employability of our students. So insofar as that, we then put targets as to what we would like the numbers to look like in the next surveys. And of course, we want to improve the process each time. So ours, it starts right from the top, right from the strategy, right from the structure of where the office sits and where the decisions are made. And then, of course, we report to the higher offices. And therefore, you see, decisions are made quickly, but the issue of employability is completely at the heart of our management board.
Great, thanks, Jackie, for that. I have a follow-up question, but before I ask that question, I'd like to ask Maka to put in a question for our audience, and the question is very related to what you are talking about, and that is, does your institution survey its alumni? Do you use tracer studies to understand your employment outcomes? And we'd like to hear from the audience. So yes, on a regular basis, or yes, occasionally, or no. So while the audience starts responding to that, I just wanted to ask you, Jackie. So you were talking about entry surveys, exit surveys, and then the career development also surveys your students. Yeah. And then do you then continuously survey alumni like a year, 2 years later to see where they are in the job market?
Yes, so the tracer surveys are done well, I would say regularly, but occasionally. And that the tracer survey is actually a survey carried out on the alumni. And it's to find out where they are, it's to find out what they're currently doing, to see what they're earning, because of course you can be working but not really earning, to see whether their jobs relate to what they studied at Strathmore University, and also whether their skills, the soft skills that they received at Strathmore University, have any influence on how they carry out their jobs. And the other thing is also to measure whether our career services unit is, whether it was useful in assisting them in getting those jobs, and so that we can improve our services. So this is done usually through the career services, because they are the ones who trace the alumni. And then the other mini surveys are also done by the alumni itself. So we keep following up with our alumni to make sure that they are okay, and also they are a mirror for us to see whether we're doing the right thing or not, and whether we need to improve. So I mean, like I can answer quite a bit, but I think because of time, I'll just make my answers short.
No, that was great. That was great. Very specific and to the point. And we have our results here. So 52% do conduct tracer studies on a regular basis. 30% yes, but not so regularly, and 20% don't. Okay, that gives us an idea. So this is, I think, a really hot topic, because this is so important and it's such a big part of what we encourage our clients to do. And there's a whole art and science to it of how to get that data and then looping it back in. So thanks, Jackie, for that. And on that, I'd like to jump to Tania, because at Continental University, you are doing a really good job staying in touch with the alumni, leveraging alumni, using them to help your graduates get jobs. And I would imagine that's also through surveying them as well and staying in contact. Could you tell us a bit about your alumni program and how you leverage them?
Yes, Amy. Actually, here I'm going to comment about one of the initiatives that we have. Actually, we were working on that initiative at the same time where we were conducting the assessment, but we were able to capitalize on the insights that we got from this project with the IFC and put it in the initiative so that we can enhance the solution and overall the impact. And that is the Simplicity platform. So Simplicity is, well, for the ones that are not familiar with the platform, it's a career service manager platform that helps us digitize all of our services. But most importantly, I think it has helped us build that relationship with the students, with the alumni, and with the employers. So I think Simplicity was one key element in facilitating that relationship and cultivating that in that aspect. In terms of the services that our students currently have, so they can access and log into the system in their mobile. They can see internships and full-time jobs that are being offered, but they can also look for mock interviews. They can ask for one-to-one appointments with the career service team. They can see what events are happening at Continental at a particular month or in that particular semester. They can look from, we have a list of MOOCs on different topics such as how to build an effective CV. They can get feedback from their CVs, and they can also seek for advisory or mentorship. And the mentor here, it's an alumni actually. So they can see from a list of alumni that they can choose from. They can enroll, that they have enrolled in the program. And if perhaps they can choose them based on a sector that they might be interested in, or a company that they might be willing to target. And besides those services that are available for our students and our alumni, our alumni, can also ask for some of the services that are provided by our entrepreneurship center or our Fab Lab, or which is the digital fabrication lab, or the incubator and accelerator. Those services are provided to them. Most of them are for free, but we do ask them for a minimal engagement.
Thanks, Tania. So that was really helpful. Thank you for explaining the Simplicity platform, which I know is used in North America, but maybe not so widespread in the rest of the world. And I'm sure the audience would be very interested in that, because that's a way, that sounds like it's one of the main ways you're staying in touch with your alumni, making sure they're interested to give their information, because you're actually providing them with valuable services and information. So that was really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. I think now what I'd like to do is open up to our Q&A session, because we've got loads of them coming in, and I want to make sure that we utilize our time. Now, let me see. Okay, I think there's one which I will direct at you, Mohamed, at this point. One question that's coming in is, how do you tailor your student employability skills, not just to the current needs of the workforce, but the future needs of the workforce? And I'm directing at you because you mentioned how difficult that is, and there's obviously a fine balance. What you see and what you know is coming, but you can't see. Could you tell us a bit about that?
I mean, it's actually a very, very interesting question. And as I mentioned, it's a very hard thing to do. So I mean, the way we always try to get a head start on this is always making sure that we are in constant link with the industry to understand what we call it future trends. And when you understand future trends of an industry, you start to basically, number one, make sure that your students understand what's coming next. And once there's what we call it a developed know-how, you're able to capture this through training and engagement. So it's very customary, for example, specifically in our med bracket, as you have seen, that you have a lot of practitioners on the field who actually come and teach for the students through mock practices and through trials and error. Because a lot of time, if you wait until what we call it future trends are documented into curricula and books, you're probably too late to teach them. So the whole idea becomes important that you have to engage practitioners at the workplace through specific agreements, that they come and start to teach this as early as possible to ensure know-how is adopted going forward. I think, as mentioned before, the whole cycle of evolution in work trends is faster than our ability to document and teach and change curricula. And that's why we have resorted to the idea of at least having 30% of our teaching staff as what we call it practitioners in the field. And this is how we're really managing to do it.
Yeah, it's like you have to really, you just have to stay in touch with industry as you keep them.
Yes.
And you have obviously kept them as close as possible at your university.
Exactly, and that's why we find this very active with different chambers of commerce to always make sure that we link our institutions to different industries.
Thanks, Mohamed. So that, and now let me move. We have so many questions coming in. So obviously, the three of you have incited a lot of interest. There's a question about COVID-19. Let me direct that to Jackline. Given that how much COVID-19 has changed both the education and the workplace, what, in your opinion, are the rising employability themes that your career development professionals need to focus on?
Okay. Wow.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a heavy topic, but I'll try and just go straight to the point. So I think COVID-19 has actually taught us quite a lot in terms of the way our institutions have to approach the issue of employability of our students. First of all, we realize that I mean, the key things that have come up is the issue around working, teamwork and working remotely. That is something that previously, yes, we would have challenge-based education, but right now, where students will be put in teams and they'll work together, it was face-to-face, it was easy to just go ahead and work in a normal environment. But now with COVID-19, there are other skills that are coming into play. First, you have to put yourself out there, especially say in terms of if you're looking for a job, you have to put yourself out there in the social, in the media, in such a forum like the one we have. So we have to focus a lot on the communication skills, presentation skills, what other skills that are needed. Like right now, there's some jobs that can be done online. Do our students have those skills to use online materials? Do they have the gadgets? You know, this is Africa, so you have to make sure that your students also have the gadgets that they can use online. So luckily for us in Strathmore, every student gets a laptop when they join, and this has been happening for at least the last 6 years. So those are some of the soft skills that you impart on a student. So that have come directly from the COVID-19 situation. Apart from that, is the workforce is going to change tremendously, and we don't even know the impact yet of how that workforce is going to change as of now. But there's some jobs that are going to be obsolete and some jobs that are going to remain. So you find that we also carry out, as an office, we're trying to carry out research and surveys to see what the impact has been. So we are doing it, but we still haven't come out with clear answers. So I think this is an area we're going to look at how it's going to change and how our future graduates are going to interact with the job market and prepare them accordingly. Even in terms of how you time the courses, you had 3 hours of classrooms. You now have, you cannot keep people on Zoom or online for 3 hours. There's Zoom fatigue. How will they interact using those tools? Do they have the right skills to engage? What are the emerging technologies? So, I mean, I could talk a lot more, but with COVID-19, we just opened the way we all look at education. And I think we're going to see quite a lot of changes in the next few years, including our competitive environment is just completely going to change. So for everybody, for institutions, for the students, so we have to be prepared for that. I hope I've answered that question because I have said quite a bit, but you know, with COVID situation, you kind of have to look at it from a panoramic view.
Definitely, definitely. No, and for me, that question was answered. I heard, first of all, you're making sure that your students have the devices that they would need. Obviously, common sense, they need computers. They need to have computers to be able to connect. You are, as an institution, doing your research on how this is impacting the job market and incorporating that into your strategy. And number two, you've actually changed the way you teach in some ways, and that's the duration of a class, for example. And I can say on that, I mean, that's even impacting grown-ups, right? If we're conducting a webinar, if we go on for longer than an hour, no matter how interesting we are, people are just going to start logging off, and we know about that. So let alone teenagers, they're going to log off even faster. So no, I think that was really helpful. Thank you, Jackie, for that. There's another question that I think Tania, you would be really well set to answer, and this was on how you make sure your employability training, i.e. the skills. And the assumption here is that you are providing different or let's say separate training for different faculties, how they are incorporated within your mainstream curricula. And if it's not incorporated within your mainstream curricula, how do you ensure all students go through this needed training? And the reason I'd like to hear from you, Tania, on this is because I know you were saying sorry, I've lost you. You were saying that you have people from vulnerable backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, and when students come in from diverse backgrounds, some of them have less skills to begin with, or let's say they haven't learned the same skills at school. So how do you address that and make sure that everybody comes up to the same kind of level when it comes to employability?
Yes, Amy. So I think that the support programs, especially at the beginning, for all types of students is going to be key. And actually, how we try to set up is to leverage on the entrance exam that they have taken, so that we can understand what are the areas where they need more support. And we have a mentorship and a well-being support unit that look at that data and provide special support, not only in terms of technical support for specific topics, but also other supports that they might need, because again, they come from pretty much different academic, as you said, and economic backgrounds. So I think that leveraging on that information and see how can we help them throughout the process, throughout their student journey, it's something that has been key. And again, leveraging also not only on that information that we get from the data, but understanding what are the topics where they have more difficulties, what are the curriculum activities that they have where they struggle the most, and providing support so that they can successfully go through them.
But thanks. So it's an entrance test, and through that entrance test, you can see where the student might need some more help, and then the career advisor or the curricular advisor would come in and give that, advise that student to take programs or classes that are relevant.
Yeah, and also, well, it's a long topic, but there are also some analytics and predictions models that help you analyze, again, what are the topics that they struggle the most, so that we can have some extra classes on those specific topics? What are the variables that happen behind the scenes of that students that probably are going to make them abandon the semester? So there are some other things along the journey of the students that we can capitalize on so that we can take and prevent that dissertation of our students.
Okay, and I have a follow-up question because I know this is something that a few institutions struggle with. Number one, dropouts, and number two, identifying the skills, or let's say the struggle areas. So on the dropout, could you give us a brief on how, like, what indicators you use and prevent for that, because that is a topic that affects a lot of our clients and audience.
Yeah, so it's going to depend. Well, for the, I didn't say that before, but actually we have 3 modalities. We have an on-campus modality targeted for more younger segments, and then we have blended and a distant campus option. So it's going to depend. What we found out was that for our distant campus segment, a key process for them was actually during the first month of because they haven't studied. They usually are 24 years old and onwards. So just presenting their first academic output was going to be essential for them. And they usually, the topics that they struggle with are more to do with the technological aspect, because they need to develop some skills like autonomy so that they can have that engagement with the topics that are given to them. On the other side, from our on-campus students, and that now is a sort of a remote option for them, most of the struggles that they found is trying to balance, because most of them, 90% of our students, even though they are very young, they work already. They work in the family business, or they have set up a business for themselves. So struggling with the job and having the time to do their studies was something that was very important for them. So again, understanding how is the structure of their family, if they are working on or not, what are the struggles that they have at house, was something that was very key for us. And as well, the school that they come from, because usually the school that they come from, you can identify what are the strength, but also some weaknesses that we have to work on with them.
Thanks, Tania, for that. And because I mean, I find it very, very, very interesting on how you can work to identify that, because sometimes that is an issue that universities don't really focus on or don't see as their job. But I remember at Bedr University, for example, Mohamed, your faculty was focused on this and identifying the dropout rate in particular faculties, and going in, it was a very tailored one, and I know you're working on scaling that up now, but it was a very tailored one on going in and understanding why people are dropping out and looping that back in. So I just wanted to share that with our audience. Actually, we have another question. Oh, yes, go, please, Mohamed, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just saying thank you. I think it's a good experience, definitely.
Okay, so we have a question, Mohamed, that I think it would be suited for you, because I know you are in discussion with regulators in Egypt. And the question is, have regulators started to discuss employability as an essential part of higher education? And what are the main points in this conversation? And I know you've had discussions with the Ministry of Higher Education. So would you like to take that one? We have 4 minutes, so maybe if you could do a minute.
So I mean, very quickly, I mean, every regulator is concerned about this issue, about basically creating jobs and filling those jobs coming in. In Egypt specifically, quite high on the agenda, because Egypt suffers from a mismatch rather than actually suffering from the creation of jobs at the end of the day. The problem is most of the regulators are looking for higher institutions to be able to provide what I call working models. Because, I mean, to a large extent, we don't have the bridges that are created naturally. And I think this is where the gap is into the market. And that's why I believe the private sector is best enabled to be able to work with the industries to create these innovative bridges, since regulators are unable to create it naturally. And that's where models like Badr University comes in. So we're trying to build bridges here to make sure the mismatch is out of the door.
Right. So and is the government, out of curiosity, is the government responding to this this suggestion?
To a large extent, I mean, they do, but I mean, at the end of the day, you know, regulators, they want to see a proven model on the ground to be able to change things going across. So I mean, the good news is they love the model, but they want to see the output and on a larger scale to be able to judge it. That's the best way going forward. But definitely, they are interested in the topic, and it's really high on the agenda nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I can see. I mean, in Egypt, at least, this is the trend forward for the higher education. The government is actually moving on this connection between private sector and creating a model that's very similar to BED, affordable. I mean, there's a fee, but it's affordable. So exactly. It looks like you are moving the needle, Mohamed, on this in Egypt.
We are trying to do that. We're trying to create the model and be part of the chain. Makes us happy.
Great. That's what we love to hear from our clients. So I think we have time for one more question. And I see a question that we hear in many of our webinars. And let me direct that at you, Jackie. It's about how you help your teachers, your teaching staff, stay abreast of all these developments in the labor market. So they have a lot of responsibility now on their They've got to make sure that your graduates can contribute to society, they can get decent jobs, that it's connected to the labor market. How do you help them do that?
Okay, so in 30 seconds, we do have a Center for Teaching Excellence, where the faculty and staff are trained on various aspects, apart from curriculum, issues of employability. They are also given the skills to be able to impart to their students. We also have the Office of Faculty Affairs, which actually looks after the faculty affairs holistically. So that faculty affairs also make sure that the faculty are kept abreast of what's happening, new technologies, mainstreaming certain aspects around the SDGs in the curriculum, amongst others. And then last but not least, we have various committees within the university that actually make sure that we handle various aspects. So we have the Quality Assurance Steering Committee. We also have the Education Committee, which also looks at curriculum and works with the academic directors. We have research committees, which work with research directors. And all these aspects, of course, in the academic council, but it's all in the structure and it's all in the strategies put in place to ensure that our faculty are kept abreast of what's happening in the outside world. Last but not least, there's the whole mentoring of faculty, to bring them up to speed. And I think in 30 seconds, that's all I can say, but there's quite a bit. And I think, one last thing, they always have a coffee in a gulp on Monday mornings. That's 1 hour where they share new things that come up. And then they also just basically talk about their experiences within 1 hour, and that's every week. So I think that covers quite a bit for the faculty.
That does. And you guys are doing an excellent job on sticking to the 2-minute answers. I suppose you're getting this from all the training you're doing for your teachers. Yeah. Well, there's still more questions, but unfortunately our time is up. I wanted to thank you so much, Mohamed, Tania, Jackie, for making the time to share your experience. It's an honor to work with you. I'd like to thank the audience. Thank you for attending. We hope this was interesting and relevant to you. And we wanted to say, if you have any questions about what IFC is doing in this space, how we can help you, we've got our website that Dina was talking about. You can check that out, Vitae. And you can send questions if you have any questions about what we do, in the email that you got in the invite. There are emails there. Please send your questions. We will get back to you as soon as we can. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, speakers, and we hope to see you again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.